Just bear with me a moment. The session's now being recorded. So welcome again. Welcome to everyone who's joined us since we just got underway, where today's session is Technology Our Friend, an introduction to the Professional Studies degree. And I'm going to hand over to Catherine now to take us through the session.
Thank you, Olivier. And I'm just going to show my video very briefly so that you can all see me sitting on my sofa. Just very briefly. Hello, everybody. It's great to have you all here. I'm going to go away again now because that helps with everybody being able to access the session with the internet. So just to introduce myself, I'm Catherine Bates. I'm the Programme Manager for the Professional Studies degree. And I just want to give a bit of an outline of the session. What we're going to be doing, I'm going to give you a really mini introduction to professional studies, just to help you know how the kind of session that we're going to do about technology would fit into the degree. And then we're going to have about 25 minutes where we have a professional studies style session. Our discussion, entitled, intriguingly, Is Technology Our Friend? Then that's going to be followed by a bit of a, and I think this might now be the other way round. It's going to be followed by hearing from some of our current students, the Learning Champions, who will be also taking part in the discussion, and then a bit of an overview of the Professional Studies programme. There's lots of opportunities to ask questions at the end, but do feel free to ask questions throughout the session as well. As Daniel was saying, you can do that using the chat function. And at any point, if you've got something that you want to ask, I'm very happy to hear other people's voices. You can just raise your hand and then I'll ask you to speak and you can unmute your microphone and talk to us all. It would be great to hear from other people. And that's the same with the Learning Champions as well. Is there something that you want to add to the session, especially when we're talking about the overview and stuff later? Okay, so let's get started. Just to give you a brief overview of professional studies, this will be fleshed out a bit later on. It's to give you that first idea. So the first thing to say about it is it's a degree specifically for mature students. So people coming into, returning to higher education with life experience, with work experience. And what we aim to do is help you build upon that experience and help you think about what your next steps could be. On the degree, we get people who are wanting to change careers, wanting to move on further in their careers, but also people who are just interested in returning to study, not sure what they want to do next, but want that opportunity to explore and develop for themselves. So it's designed for all of those groups of people. We've got 3 strands that run throughout the degree. If you imagine you're this little person in the centre. And the first strand is the interdisciplinary strand. So I'm calling that Who Am I? That involves looking at the world that we live in now from a variety of different perspectives. We start with the idea of identity. So that's why I've put the Who Am I there. You can understand your role in the world differently once you start to understand the issues that face us all from this variety of different perspectives. And it's those different perspectives that make it interdisciplinary. And the session we're just about to do, we're taking that interdisciplinary approach. Then we've got the professional strand. I'm calling that Who Can I Be? And that's to do with thinking collectively about the changing world of work, what changes are happening, what kind of skills do you need to develop to get into different areas, how can you empower yourself to move on in the workplace or to set up your own business and have your own employees. That involves modules to do with leadership and employability, but it also involves our research strand where you get to develop research skills to research areas of your own interest. And talking of your own interest, we've got the third strand, which is the discovery and pathways strand. And that's where for a third of the degree, you get to choose the modules you want to do. So you, in a way, you design your own degree. You can choose modules from within the Lifelong Learning Centre around our areas of specialism, that child and family studies, learning and teaching, creative writing, business, or you can look more widely into the wider university. And in the second half of this session, we can explore that a bit more. So throughout the degree, you'll be developing your own portfolio of relevant knowledge, skills and experience, developing on the knowledge and experience we know you would already be bringing into the degree. So that's the brief overview. As I said, any questions, any comments, just use the chat or put your hand up. Okay, so we're going to move on to the taster session. So is technology our friend? In this session, we're going to think a bit about the role of technology in our lives. We're going to be learning from each other and sharing ideas and experience, as well as factoring in a case study and different ways of thinking, that ways academics have thought of that, to bring those into the discussion. And hopefully there's going to be a little opportunity in this session and then afterwards to maybe challenge your own assumptions, learn from others, and be open to thinking differently. And really, that's at the heart of what professional studies is all about. Okay, so first of all, this is going to be a bit of a group discussion. So to take part in this discussion, what I would really encourage you to do, so there's 3 things you can do here. You can raise your hand and speak. And if you say something, I will type your ideas on the slide. You can write your ideas on the slide yourself. And as Daniel was saying, that involves if you click on the T at the top of the screen and then you can just start typing your idea, or you can put your idea in the chat and one of us will transfer that to the board. So what I want to think about, want you to think about, is how does technology affect our everyday lives? Um, and I want you to be thinking about the positive impact and also the negative impact. So I'm just going to give you a little opportunity to think. The learning champions can get involved with this as well. And as soon as you've got an idea, either put it in chat, type it on the slide, or raise your hand and tell us your thoughts. I think as soon as we get the ideas rolling, then that's going to help everyone have more ideas. Ah, fantastic. And we've got a start, 24-hour access to information. And another thing to say, a kind of cool thing we can do here, is you can use the pencil function. I'm going to show you if you agree with a point. You can only use the pencil function to tick so we can see how much people are kind of agreeing with these points. Helps to focus my interests is a really interesting one. Speeds things up. Yeah, we can get access to information more quickly. But on the other hand, there could be too much information, good or bad. It can become addictive. I think that's very true. I've had to kind of really think about that while we've been in lockdown, because you can end up being on technology and not using anything else. I agree, and I agree with that one as well. So feel free, everybody else, to use the tick function if you agree with any of these ideas. Just going to see. Yeah, saves lives, really good point. So there's some really strong positive impacts. Could we imagine our lives without technology? Social media to connect, yeah, absolutely. So really good point about communication, about connection there. Yeah, connects people and it's connecting us all now. So that's an excellent point. Again, it could be an echo chamber. So that's interesting in the positive impact. That feels to me like yes, it could be both positive and negative. Someone was talking to me recently about Facebook being their safe space. that they knew the people there would be people they agreed with them. But obviously, the negative of that is you don't get those different perspectives and really understand where other people are coming from. Takes your attention away from the people you're with. That's really interesting. And maybe what I'd ask you to think about there is there's an idea of presence there, isn't it? Who are you with and who aren't you with? In a way, I'm with you all here now. So it means I'm not paying attention to Gareth in my house or the cats. But I'd rather be with you. So it's that idea of attention and concentration and also presence. Really fascinating. Less social contact. Brilliant. Brilliant to hear from someone else. Andrea, do you want to switch your microphone on and say hello and tell us your idea?
I think in a way it can make your brain a bit lazy because you don't have to store information. It's like when you use a calculator, you forget how to do it in your head.
Yeah. I think that's it's a really good point. We become really reliant on it, don't we, to be able
Yeah.
to do this
And like
stuff.
when we use the phone now, we don't remember people's numbers. I mean, the amount of times I've helped people in town when I used to do security because the phone's died and they don't remember anybody's number, not one number. Not storing anything
Yeah.
in the phone anymore.
Yeah, really interesting point about memory and about skills. Is it de-skilling us a bit? Because we rely on the technology to do that. Is the other side of that we do speed things up. Really interesting. Just going to read a few more of these out.
Yeah.
So on the positives, we've got access to self-help, impartial advice and information. Yeah, interesting. If we put that with the too much information, we could also think about we need to make sure we know that we're getting that impartial information. So maybe a skill we have to develop in this information heavy world is to be able to tell what's impartial. Good in lockdown for shopping, ebooks, absolutely at the moment, absolutely crucial to give us access to things we wouldn't have otherwise. On the negatives, we've got not accessible to all because of cost. Really great point, really great point. So it can cause extra inequalities. And I'm sure a lot of us have been experiencing and thinking about that during this time of lockdown. Some people have been able to access a lot of stuff through Zoom meetings, through online shopping, all of that. Others may not have, and it may have further isolated them. I think that's a really good point. We've got the point here as well of bullying keyboard warriors. Yeah, so social media, on the one hand, we've got that idea of connecting easily. On the other hand, it can be easy to bully or to get into your own sense of attacking people or getting into a bubble of being attacked. There's research out there that shows about that idea of group mentality or the different ways you might communicate if you feel anonymous. Reading a really interesting at the moment about that I'd really recommend. I'm going to put it in the chat. It's John Ronson's You've Been Publicly Shamed, and it's really readable, and it's all about that kind of online bullying. Sorry, distracted myself then by getting excited by all your ideas. Andrea, let's hear from you again. It's great to have someone else talking. Hi, Andrea. Hi, Andrea, did you have something else to say?
Is it on now? Sorry.
Yeah, no
Um,
worries.
Further to the sort of negative impact of social media, there were a case where a man who I think he was in his 60s were encouraging teenagers to commit suicide. So, where we presume it might be teenagers bullying teenagers or inciting them to do silly things, it's not always the case. I mean, there's grown, mature people doing things like that. So
Ab-
it can be quite a dangerous place, obviously.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really good point. We talked about learning from each other and challenging our assumptions. It's really true. that we can imagine it in young people bully each other, but that bullying can happen, unfortunately, in all generations, and social media can be a way to enable that, unfortunately. Oh, really interesting, John, that You've Been Publicly Shamed was made into a podcast. I did not realise. I'll have to listen. So that was amazing. Thanks everyone for sharing those ideas. Let's move on. We could spend the whole session on this slide, which would be amazing. But let's move on to kind of move this discussion on a bit. I just want to reflect a bit on what I could see happening, which was brilliant, and it's through everybody's contributions, we were recognizing I've put this as a binary choice, like it's just a case of either positive or negative. What a lot of you have already acknowledged is things can be posed as positive and negative. It's not always as simple as saying something's either good or bad. We've been weighing up what can be an opportunity, but also a threat with all of these things. So that's really excellent critical thinking going on there. Okay, so Daniel's going to help me out with this in a sec. We're going to see if we can get a short clip to work. I'll just introduce the task. So the next critical question I want to ask that's leading us to is technology our friend? Is can technology really be used as a companion instead of or alongside a human companion? So we're going to watch a bit of a video about elder care robots. That's what they're called in North America. And when watching it, I want you to think about what is the robot designed to do? What kind of relationship is the woman developing with the robot? And is the robot really caring for her? And we'll return to this slide with the questions to think about again when we've watched the clip, but you might want to note them down just to think about it. So what is the robot designed to do? What kind of relationship is the woman developing with the robot? And could we really say that the robot's caring for her? So Daniel, if you're able to now watch to show the clip, that would be amazing. We'll see whether this works.
Absolutely. So screen so that we can all watch the video together. I've copied over the questions that Catherine just asked into the chat. So while we're watching, you can still find them to your right. And I'm also copying now the YouTube link just in case it doesn't work for people. So you can click on that as well. But I'm going to share my screen now. Just bear with me one moment.
Yes.
This song is In the Mood by Glenn Miller.
What we wanted to do was design a robot that's easy to use.
The time is 9:39 a.m.
Designed specifically for seniors, but also affordable. I think that was very important. It's something that seniors, older individuals could trust.
He's company, and there's somebody to talk to, and somebody to dance with. I like the song that he plays, actually.
Okay, Rudy. What would you like me to do? Help me. Have I reached you? Remember to take your morning medication, Anthony.
We always had seniors involved, and every time we had some type of communication, we'd introduce it. Seniors would give us their feedback. Oh, we don't like this, we don't like that. We'd come in and change it.
Okay.
At an early age, I saw both aspects of it, and as I grew older, I realized we weren't the only family facing this problem.
Let's go.
There are thousands of families facing the same issue. Most cases even worse, where they have a loved one that they're taking care of, and the cost becomes an issue. So we don't want to make decisions for them. We want to help them make decisions and really give the power back to them so that they can stay independent.
Hi, good afternoon. Did you take your medicine this morning?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Did you sleep okay last night?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So, Rudy's a companion. He'll, work on talking with you and engaging you.
What would you like me to do?
Let's go. So here, Rudy's able to help carry things for me, help me around the house as I'm moving throughout the day. We're leveraging the artificial intelligence within our platform to help seniors make better decisions to allow them to stay in their home, which, according to AARP, 90% of them want to stay in their home. And the longer we can keep them in their home, the happier they are. And that's really what we want to do.
He does a pretty good job, I think. Yes.
Brilliant. Thanks, Daniel, for that. And now I'm hoping that everyone saw enough of that clip to start thinking about these questions. So let's move on to the next slide where we can start sharing our ideas. And the good thing about this is if people missed anything, then other people can help them fill in the gaps. So let's just think a bit first of all. And again, you can write on the slide, in the chat, or you can be like Andrea, thanks Andrea, and raise your hand and talk to us. What is the robot designed to do, first of all? What kind of things was it designed to do? Brilliant for older people who need support, absolutely. So it's definitely there as a supporting memory issues, medication reminder, absolutely. Reminder about meds. So taking that care role in terms of boosting that memory in a different way from the way we were discussing before. Companionship, communication with family, yeah. Interesting that it also could connect to a human potentially in its tummy. Carry things, entertain, communicate with family, companionship. Absolutely, nice summary there. Peter saying, isn't it just replacing human contact? And I think that's a really interesting question that moves us on to my next question. So thanks, Peter. I think that's a really insightful question. Is it replacing human contact? So what kind of relationship is the woman developing with the robot? I think this is a trickier question. Yeah, absolutely. So some people don't have that human contact. Is this good as a substitute? It's filling a gap. Interesting. Thanks, Karen. What do other people think? What kind of relationship is the woman developing with the robot? Hi, Jenny. You want to switch your microphone on and share your idea?
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
I was just going to say this is quite apt for me because I do some work at CQC, which is the Care Quality Commission. So I've actually interviewed people that receive they have received care in their own home. And one of the things that they very often say is that they don't get enough contact.
Right.
They don't. So I think it's a case of it doesn't necessarily have to replace human contact. And I think, like somebody's actually put on the screen, it's not necessary. If they don't get that contact in the first place,
Yeah.
I think it provides a valuable addition or it can provide a valuable addition alongside human contact. I think it's this how we look at it. We automatically look at it maybe not from a defensive point of view, but from a negative point of view. That because it's something different, it's not necessarily a good thing. Whereas I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, really, really good point to kind of think beyond maybe that initial defensiveness or worry and see what opportunities it's giving.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, sorry, Jenny, I got distracted by the chat. Thank you so much for that. Lila's making an interesting point about trust, a really interesting issue, and could it phone authorities if the user was in danger? Yeah, so it could act like a personal alarm, and if you think about it, we already have technology that acts like that. Like my neighbour wears a wristband thing, electronic wristband, so if she falls, we'll get a message as well as the hospital. So because she's got osteoporosis. Yeah, so really interesting. So we've got cares for the least able, maybe that was going to say, and it's providing that safeguard. So it's quite a hi Andrea. What would you like to share? Andrea, have you got your microphone on?
Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of care work, and I think one aspect of it is the non-judgmental.
Ah, really interesting point.
No
Yeah,
discrimination, no prejudgment, no, expectations. So
yeah,
yeah, that's a lot of training in care, isn't it? Is, person-centered
yeah.
and, no stereotyping and, and obviously, really, a robot can't really do that. Can't make a function.
That's an excellent point. The sense of equality and diversity, it's just going to
Yeah,
accept anyone for who they are. Really, really interesting
yeah.
point. And great to get that experience from you and Jenny in terms of thinking about that caring role. Thanks, Andrea. And Joe,
Well,
you've got your hand up. Would you like to share? Just make sure your
yes,
microphone. Oh,
I was
hi,
just
Joe.
going to say, I cared for my mum when she had dementia, so I used to go in a couple of times a day, but we also had carers coming in. And the robot would have been good for communicating with her because she couldn't cope with using a telephone. And it also, what I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it just now. Was it Andrea? Said about not being judgmental. Some of the carers that went in, my mum didn't really like very much. Not many, but there were one or two that she didn't find it easy to talk to. Whereas I suppose the robot she would be used to it. It would just be like a sort of part of the furniture.
Yeah, really good point. So you get that consistency of
Yeah.
care. Maybe you don't feel so invaded.
Mm.
Yeah, really, really good point. And my partner's father's needed care, and yeah, that was one of the big issues that because he's got dementia as well, was having those unfamiliar people and
Mm.
how disconcerting that could feel. Yeah,
But I
thanks,
would just
Joe.
worry that it was going to, that some people would see it as, well, we've got that, so we don't need to go round.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's interesting, goes back to what Jenny was talking about. Do we see this as an addition? If it starts to get seen as a replacement,
Mm.
that could feel worrying or problematic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. Thanks, everyone. I think we've sorted through that discussion. We've started to answer the third question, which is the trickiest, is the robot caring for her? And I think we've thought it can take a bit of a care role. And I think people can develop a kind of affection, like they could for their pets, with something they're spending so much time with. Is it able to care for her, maybe in addition rather than on its own, is what we're suggesting. I've just seen the time, so I am gonna. But this is a good discussion. We've got loads of stuff going on there that I've just seen. Enabling and supporting. Why not invest the same money in good social networks rather than investing in the development of robots? Really interesting, Peter. Really interesting question about society and our priorities and what people want to do. In the end, would robots be cheaper to pay for than human carers? Or is it that some people would prefer that robot because they would feel less invaded, as Joe was just helping us think about? We are going to have to move on. Again, we could spend so much time and continue to have that chat with each other. I'm just going to sort of end this part of the session And I'm going to go back to a quote that we've got here from Sherry Turkle, who's a researcher in ethics and technology. And you're going to get these slides as a takeaway after the session. So these are some things to think about in your own time. Turkle asks us, are there some tasks, such as providing care and companionship, that only befit living creatures? And it's interesting that on the other slide someone talked about pets, because she's definitely not just talking about humans there. She says, can a human being and a robot ever be said to perform the same task? And then how shall we assign value to what we have traditionally called relationship authenticity? And I think that video was interesting because when the woman was talking, it felt like she had a fondness for the robot when she's talking about the jitterbug. I think she was starting to develop a relationship with it. I'm not saying she was thinking it was human, but it was becoming an important companion in her life. So that's just something to think about and to debate. I am aware that we're overrunning with this part of the session, so I'm just going to move on to the final bit of the session. So just a few takeaway thoughts and questions. The World Transhumanist Association, if they had been involved in our first discussion, they would have only had positives. They're very positive about the way technology is changing human experience. And they actually said at the cusp of the 21st century, they said such innovations as speech, written language, printing, engines, modern medicine, and computers have had a profound impact on not just on how people live their lives, but on who and what they are. So a big question I've got for you to think about in your own times is technology changing what it means to be human? And in the second year module that I teach on professional studies in the interdisciplinary strand, exploring contemporary issues, we ask that question, what does it mean to be human, in different ways? And we actually do look at this question about technology. I want to ask you, and this relates to Jenny's comment about mobile phones in the chat at the moment, can you imagine your lives without technology? And an extra challenging question that we think about on the course, are we now all cyborgs? So are we all now actually part human, part technology? Can we imagine our existence anymore without technology? And it's a theorist, Donna Haraway, if you want to look up that idea, she's talked a lot, you can find her on YouTube, who makes that argument that actually we are all now cyborgs. It's fundamentally changed what it means to be human. Okay, so that's the end of the taster session about technology. And I just want to reflect a bit on what's just happened in relation to the academic skills you would need for studying at university and on the degree. What you've just been doing, we've had lots of different kinds of communication, both technologically, we've heard people's voices, and you've used the chat. You've been developing those ideas through discussion with others. And I think it's amazing how you've taken to the chat to talk to each other as people have been agreeing with each other, challenging each other, sharing their perspectives. It's been brilliant, and sharing our minds. We've also engaged in analysis. You've been connecting to points, thinking critically about people's points, thinking about examples and weighing up the pros and cons. And you've engaged in interdisciplinary thinking. We've thought about an example from a different country there. People have thought, Peter raised that point about society and its priorities. Andrea and Jenny and Joe were all thinking about healthcare and philosophy, really, and how we're treating people as human. Peter again raised that business perspective. Is it that what people are really doing is thinking about the money? And you've showed criticality, so critical thinking skills in kind of challenging your own assumptions, listening to others, and taking on board those new ideas. And that's what studying at university and on professional studies is all about. So well done you. If we were all face to face, I would be giving you a big round of applause. As it is, you'll just have to, or maybe I can do that. I think maybe you could hear that. I didn't near my microphone. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is we've got, we're going to hear from 2 learning champions at this stage, and then Roland a bit later on. So Karen and Jenny, would you be able to share your experiences at this point? Maybe Karen could talk first. Maybe Karen, if you go first, if that's okay.
Hi there, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Right, okay. Hi, I'm Karen. I joined the Lifelong Learning Centre last year as a first year student. First thing I should say is that I'm in my 50s, so I'm what you would class as a pretty good example of the fact you're never too old to learn. I went to a really, I wouldn't say poor school because all schools are good, but it was a school that didn't have very high expectations of its pupils. Did terribly at A-level at college and actually thought I would never ever get a degree. My sisters all had them and I always felt inferior. So finding the Lifelong Learning Centre was absolutely amazing for me. I joined through the alternative entry scheme, was offered an interview. At each stage of the game, I thought, sorry, I thought they're going to find out I'm a fraud and they're going to think that I'm just not capable of being here. But amazingly, I got through, and amazingly, I've just absolutely loved every bit of it. It's a brilliant place to be. The teachers, the lecturers are all fantastic. It's actually an experience like no other. Having been in a job where I felt very undervalued, I suddenly felt like I was a valued member of a team, and a really friendly team at that. You can ask any question you want. No question is stupid. No viewpoint you offer is undermined. Lecturers have the ability to make you feel like you've always said the right thing, even if maybe you've swerved the point ever so slightly. It can be brought back. They're available to us when you need them, and always happy to talk to us if you're having an issue with an assignment and help us find the right path. All the staff are lovely. Probably being a bit gushing here, but you know, just really speaking from the heart. What the aim is for us to achieve our best, and that's all they want to do, and they're prepared to take, you know, to help you however that's possible. As Catherine said, there are core modules, and then you've got the choice of the learning pathways or from the module catalogue. So my extra modules were safeguarding child development, both of which were really interesting. I feel like I've learned so much. I've learned different ways of looking at things. In diversity, I mean, that's very relevant at the moment, obviously. Exploring diversity. You know, you just learn a different way of actually seeing the world, I think. We do get weekly prep for lectures, so you've got to fully engage in that, and you've got to obviously research assignments. I won't say it was easy at the beginning. It wasn't easy. It was very hard. But once you actually learn how to do things like referencing and structuring assignments, you can then concentrate on the actual topic of the assignment more, and really get to grips with it. The staff are all lovely. I've said that before. You make new friends. We had our own friendship study group last year, which was invaluable. We booked rooms in the library. We sort of met up every Wednesday or something like that, and just had 2 hours of sitting there talking, studying, whatever we needed to do at the time. And finally, I suppose, from a point of view of what I've gained from it, I've gained confidence, I've gained skills, I've gained knowledge, and I've gained friends. So I would never say to anybody, don't do it. And that's about me done.
Oh, thanks, Karen. That was brilliant. Thanks so much. Jenny, would you be able to share your experience too?
Hi, yeah, my name's Jenny, and I'm actually in what should have been the final year of professional studies, so year 3, but I've just extended another year. So I just bearing in mind the time, so I'll try and not go off on a tangent. I'm 44, I'll be 45 this year, and I had a bit of a crisis, you might say. My mum died 5 years ago, and having spent 5 years as a full-time carer, I didn't really know what to do with myself. I'd never had a career path, and kind of drifted from one job to another, and I'd never actually finished high school, so formal education was not my strong suit, shall we say. I did some GCSEs and one thing and another, and how I came to Leeds University is I went to Northern College, which is a residential college for adults in Barnsley, and I missed the talk by MJ. So MJ is no longer at the Lifelong Learning Centre, but I really felt compelled to hear what Leeds University had to offer, although it never occurred to me that I might actually go. And I had a chat, and it was presented to me as a very viable option. And as I say, 3 years on, I'm here. Professional studies as the actual degree was it was the only thing that I could consider at the time, and now 3 years on, I wouldn't consider anything else. Like Karen said, it changes. It just changes you. I want not necessarily that it changes your viewpoint. It gives you a broader viewpoint perspective. The best way I can describe it is, it just blows your mind wide open. It's a fantastic opportunity if you get to do it. And I don't say that easily. My journey this last 3 years has not been linear. So I have mental health difficulties, and I had some additional ones. I had them before I started this degree, and I had some additional ones thrown in. And the Lifelong Learning Centre, I can't praise it highly enough. It's not a magic wand. There is no, there's no one size fits all, but I've had some fantastic support from the LLC, the staff, the tutors, the support staff, and they've just gone to the utmost end to support me, to make sure that or to help me get to the end of my degree. So Leeds University, the Lifelong Learning Centre, fantastic. Professional studies as a degree, also fantastic. There's so many things you get to look at. There's so many things you can get involved in, and you can do as much or as little as you like. And I don't mean that by the workload. I mean by how much you want to engage in student life. And there isn't, again, there's not a one size fits all journey. It's different for everybody. It will look different for everybody, and you only I'm probably getting, as Karen mentioned, maybe getting a little bit gushing, but it's just that if you get to do it, it's a wonderful opportunity, and I would recommend it to anybody. I think I will just leave it at that.
Oh, thanks, Jenny. Thanks so much. Thanks so much to Jenny and Karen for being so open and honest about their experiences. It's fantastic, and I feel very privileged to have you as students. You give as much back as we give you. It's brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to pass on to somebody now to just talk very briefly about the student finance for higher education.
Yes, that's me. Thanks very much, Catherine, and Jenny and Karen. You were just fantastic. So just to very briefly say, if anyone who's with us today is thinking about maybe progressing to higher education at any point, and finance is one of the barriers, as it is for many people, it's just worth remembering that although there's so much in the media about debt and huge fees for university education, those fees are not paid up front. Most people are eligible for a tuition fee loan from the government. It's basically, as long as you don't already have a UK degree and you meet certain residency status in the UK, that pays your fees to the university, and you don't need to worry about paying those back until you're earning, it's now in fact over £26,000. If you never earn that, you never pay it. There's also other financial support you can get to help you with your living costs, some in the form of additional loans, but also some is non-repayable, so it's basically like grants. And the rule of thumb is the lower your income, the more financial support you should be entitled to. And if you have additional needs or disabilities, if you're a carer or have children, you can also get extra support for such childcare grants, disability grants, and so on. And if you never repay your tuition fee loan, that money, the debt is wiped after 30 years anyway. It's not passed on to family or anyone. So in some cases it's more like a graduate tax, because but if you don't earn enough to pay it, you don't pay it. So just to really put your mind at rest about the finance, and we'll talk a little bit at the end about how we can advise you with your next steps as well.
Thanks, Olivia. So now I'm going to pass on to Rosie, who's our Deputy Programme Manager, who's going to continue our brief overview of what professional studies is.
Oh, hello. Thanks very much, Catherine. I'm just going to put my camera just briefly on, hopefully, so you can see me. I'm here. Hello. I'll just put it off again. Thank you all for being here and for joining us for this session. I don't want to use too much time because I want Roland also to have time to tell you a bit about his experience. But it's just going back to the first point that Catherine, explain about the context and the way in which the program is organized. If you remember, there were these 3 strands, and the first one, the interdisciplinary strand, is the one that Catherine said is about, around the question of who am I. So it's, just about looking at the contemporary world from different perspectives and kind of really facing and learning about all the issues that any modern professional has to, deal with in their everyday lives and in their work. So you would be talking about modules such as exploring diversity, health and society, exploring contemporary issues in the second year that would really fit in with Catherine was telling you about with the taste that you've had today. Also global perspectives with myself in the second year. So there's all of the range of topics like globalization, diversity, and technology that you would be learning about. The second strand, if you remember, was that professional and project strand that was around the question, who can I be? And about the changing world of work, and also about research skills. So you learn about research all throughout the degree. And this is really about building your professional skills, growing all of that knowledge and skills that will be useful for you to become a professional and to grow your career in the way that you would like to. And obviously this includes things like employability, includes creativity, work and change, includes leadership. So a whole range of modules around those things. And the third part of the degree is the one where you have more kind of choice in terms of how you want to focus your degree, and that's what we call the pathway and or discovery strand. The pathway, as Catherine mentioned, we have 4 pathways at the moment that are more kind of established. That are one on business management, one on child and family studies, one on learning and teaching, and one on creative writing. These are modules that take place more in the Lifelong Learning Center because we have teams that teach all the degrees around these topics, or they teach discovery modules around these topics. I won't go into a lot of detail about this because you will be sent a whole outline of the degree with all the modules and more detail about this and other links that you will be able to check on your own time. And I don't want to take too much time, but obviously just also to tell you that this pathway or discovery strand, the second option is the discovery. The discovery is a huge range of modules that are available across the university. All schools and departments at the university offer some discovery modules, and there's an incredible choice in terms of different areas that you would choose modules in, such as creating sustainable futures, enterprise and innovation, ethics, religion and law, exploring the sciences, language and intercultural understanding, media, culture and creativity, mind and body, personal and professional development, so building even more in that, power and conflict, technology. So there's a whole range of areas where you could be looking at different modules, and you will also be sent a link to the website where you can explore more the range of offer around that. So these are the main 3 strands, and obviously this third part is where obviously we would also be kind of supporting you in the program to think through what your interests are and what the choice may be for you, and obviously we are there to help you think through what you want to build in your degree. But I think it may be useful to hear from someone who's done it, and as we have Roland here, one of our graduates, maybe it'll be the time to bring Roland in and see what how Roland can share a little bit what his experience was as now a graduate of professional studies. Roland, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Rosa. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me and for asking me to come and share my story on in the taster session. To the guys who are here to sort of hear and research and think, well, is this for me? Uh, I was where you are in 2015, I think. So around early 2015, thinking, right, okay, what's the next step? What can I do? And, you know, don't underestimate the step you've taken by joining the webinar. It sort of informs whatever you go on to do. So like Rosa said, I graduated on the degree in 2018. I mean, I was sat there, I was sure, I became sure as I listened that higher education was the thing that I needed to sort of give me my options for you know, what next, because that was the struggle. I had worked and I just didn't want to have to go back to work and have a conversation I'd had years before, which was, well, Roland, if only you had a degree, we might look at whatever the conversation was. And I just thought, well, I'll take this opportunity to do something about that, which I'm sort of glad I've done. Like Rosa mentioned, the discovery pathway of the degree is what I took, and that allowed me to sort of study modules from across the school, you know, business, sociology, and philosophy as well. Uh, that was great because what it does is it speaks to an earlier point of when Catherine's slides where she's talking about the and my brain's just gone. But it's where you're starting to think of the interdisciplinary thing, because that's the biggest takeaway I have sort of taken from my time on the program. And interdisciplinary is just simply being able to connect ideas or disciplines to make your point, really, because you are creating your own knowledge. Why a degree, or why university? For me, what I've sort of learned and gained is I always talk about a tree, and I say the root or the trunk, that's the knowledge. So that's non-negotiable. You're there to study and get the qualification and then move on. But you know, the tree has branches, and those branches are the people you're going to meet on campus, you know, literally from all over the world. And the branches have leaves, and these leaves are what feed the tree. And this is all the extra stuff that the university will put in place, and you know, the opportunities that will come with your full entire sort of with your full student experience. And all these things work together to go through the what Jenny and Karen were saying, this if almost transformative process that happens, I guess, to the way you think and how to approach life in general, and hopefully your own life as well. I think what's critical is for you to have your motivation in the right place, because it's not going to be going into the sweet shop and buying shops. It's going to require a lot out of you. You're going to have to work for this qualification. So have that in place. Know why you want to do it. So that will be my pointer. So I graduated in 2018. I decided to go and exhaust the student experience. I've just completed my master's, so I will be class of 2020. So we get to graduate in the year of the pandemic, and that's going to be forever. But that's my choice. And whatever it's okay to say, well, I might want to do it for this, but just be aware that as you go through the process, that might change, and that it's okay for that change to happen, because yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I've enjoyed it. I'm still enjoying it. I've just I'm enjoying it so much. I've just put in an application to start on my PhD. But this is me. Everybody has their own unique journey. So whatever you do post this webinar, I wish you only the very best. And thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Roland. Really helpful to hear your perspective. And yeah, you were slightly downplaying your achievements at the end there. Roland has just got his master's in international business, and he's been encouraged by the business school to now do a PhD. So he's really going places, which is fantastic. And that's just to lead us on. I'm going to be very brief about this because we want to have time for those questions. Thanks to everyone who said that they can stay until 10. last 3, so we've got room for that. I just wanted, because this is often a question, this is something we can talk a bit more about, but I wanted to anticipate the question, what can you do with a professional studies degree? And I've tried to summarise what people have gone on to do. We've got people who are now, we've got a graduate Neil who's now working for the Home Office. We've got a few people working in different community support organisations and different charities. We've got someone who works in the staff support team for the Care Quality Commission. We've got a few people that have gone on to do training to become teachers and social workers. We've got someone who works as a business manager for the NHS, someone who works educating prisoners, someone who works now as a housing officer for the Leeds City Council, and we've got people who have, well, Roland, as you've just seen, completed a Masters in International Business, someone else who's undertaking a Masters, same subject now, people who have completed the Masters in Social Research, and someone in Intercultural Understanding. And I haven't covered everyone, but that's to give you a bit of a sense of the diverse places this degree can take you, really. And I think now, yes, let's move on to, so you've got me and Rosa here. You've also got the 3 students, so you might have questions to them. So Learning Champions, if you've got answers to any of the questions to give your perspective, do chime in, and remember everybody to ask the questions. You can use the chat or you can raise your hand and ask a question that way. Lila's asking how many places are on the course, how many are left. At the moment we've got a limit of 40 full-time places on the course and 5 part-time for each year group. At the moment, we've got about 20 places left, and that's because I think some people, lockdown is giving them an opportunity to think about what they do next and maybe apply for study. For some people, it feels like it's a worrying thing. So we've got quite a lot of places left on the course. So if you know anyone else who's interested, that's great. It looks as though we should have a cohort of about 20 for this year, unless recruitment picks up. And last year we recruited 37 people. Any other questions? So I have a place for PhD in autumn, so I'd be looking to apply. Okay, so you'll get supported with how to apply to professional studies in PhE. So what Lynn does with everybody on PhE is she starts to help you. I think around December time, you start to kind of confirm what it is you want to progress on. You do a bit of an application just to say what your interest is with your CV. Lynn writes a reference and that comes to us. And we will interview you just to make sure really that you've got a good understanding of professional studies and you're still happy to come onto the course. I hope that's answered your question, Joe. Peter, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, hiya.
Hi.
I'm retired, so I'm not actually interested in professional development anymore. So for me, returning to university and being at university is simply about education in its purest sense. Will your third element, I can't remember, your second element, I think, was who do I want to be? Is that a compulsory thing, or can I do 2 discovery elements?
It is a compulsory thing, so that's a good question. Thanks, Peter. We do always have some people on a degree like you who are doing it purely for the pleasure of study. So the 3 modules that are attached to the professional and project strand, there's 3 modules that are research modules as part of that. So they're all about the pleasure of study and researching, and you could choose your own area of interest for those. The other 3 modules are, so there's employability in a changing world in the first year, second year creativity, work and change, and third year leadership for a changing world. And you can approach all three of those modules. It's only really the first one that has a really explicit career development focus. But what it equally focuses on is looking critically at the world of work as a kind of, from a interdisciplinary perspective. This is something we could talk about more one-to-one, but people have got a lot out of that module, reflecting on the career that they've had, talking to other people about what they want to do, just thinking about, if I had my time again, what I would do, or how can we be empowered to think about the whole idea of work differently. And you could even think on that module about the degree as work or study as an idea of work. So you would have to do that strand, but there's different ways to approach that strand. I hope.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I'd sent you an email before I realised this thing was on. So, I mean, yeah, potentially a one-to-one conversation would be useful for me.
Yeah, that would be really good. Did you say you sent me an email?
I did literally about an hour ago. I only came
right.
across it and spoke to, is it Denise in Careers
Oh,
Online
yes.
about 48 hours ago. So this is entirely new for me.
Okay, great. Well, let's organise a conversation and we can think a bit more about what you're interested in and whether this is the right course.
Okay, thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. Roland.
I was just gonna add to your answer, but I guess you then qualified it by whether it's the right program or not. But I was just gonna say, Peter, I don't see why it wouldn't be something you can do for, you know, what you're after, especially with the discovery pathway, because that's definitely there for someone like you. And I think I use that to my fullest advantage, and it's allowed me to sort of carry on with the learning that I'm doing. So definitely the degree would work towards that. But then you also, like Catherine said, you just need to know whether it will be the correct one for you.
Yeah, thanks, Roland.
Yeah, and it's all about, I mean, what we really want to make sure we do in the Lifelong Learning Centre is give people the right advice to do what they want to do. So in that conversation with me, I'm not going to be overly pushing professional studies. We're going to be looking at what could it provide you the opportunity to do, and is it the best thing, really? And that's for anyone else that's here, happy to have those one-to-one conversations to explore your particular situation a bit more. Any other questions or concerns?
If I could again, sorry.
Yeah.
But it's really, I mean, the past students have talked about how it was for them, but I'm guessing, you know, we're in a slightly different world at the moment. So it's almost what clarity there is from the university about how they will deliver a degree course in our new world, starting in October. I'm assuming most of it's going to go online now.
Yes. So yeah, as you'll know, we don't have complete certainty over what the rules are going to be then. And as you can imagine, we're having lots of meetings trying to work out the best thing for us to do. Because we're still waiting for advice from the Central University about what their policy is going to be. What it looks like it's going to be, I know the university is going to release a statement about this soon, is, and what I'm hoping it's going to be, is a mix of online and face-to-face. So maybe probably less face-to-face than you would normally have, but if possible, smaller discussions could happen in a face-to-face contact way, and other material could be shared online, and sessions like this could also happen online. What the university is wanting to think about is that balance between a good student experience and people's health and safety. So what we've also been asked to think about in our planning is, if we did have face-to-face sessions, how to include people who might not feel safe yet to travel or come onto campus. So it's going to, the approach that we take is going to be, what I can say is flexible and student-centred, and that's like across the university. So if we do have to do it completely online, there's going to be lots of opportunities to talk to tutors in smaller groups, face-to-face, to still get that contact that you wouldn't get if you were just looking at materials online. I hope that makes sense. Sorry that I can't give a more certain.
Well, I understand nobody's got an answer, so no, that's as good as it gets, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And just to say, there is a conversation going on in the chat, which I'll just talk about really briefly. It's a good point that Lila makes about the difference between pathways and discovery. You can do a mix of both. So you can think, I'm interested in these children's family studies, for example, pathway modules like the ones that Karen talked about. Maybe you're interested in safeguarding children, but also I've always wanted to learn Japanese, and you can do safeguarding children in one semester and then beginners Japanese in the next semester. It's fine to mix it up to make it work for you. You're not committed to a particular pathway. You could also mix pathways and think, I'm really interested in accounting, but I also want to find out more about child development, and you could do modules each in that. So and what we do, because there's so much choice, is we really help you think through what would be best for you. And one of the things to bear in mind is there are restrictions such as timetabling, and sometimes some modules have prerequisites, so you need to have done some study in that subject before you do it, but we can advise you about all of that. Any other questions at this stage? Yeah, and you can tell what's the thing about the discovery strand, it's exciting and it's quite complex. So we help you with the excitement and the complexity. Any other questions? If you have a job in mind, there are ways of tailoring. Yes. And I think that it's just to say, and just to reflect on what Peter said, what I hope is for everybody on the degree, there's an opportunity to use it to do that development if you're wanting to use it to develop your career, but you'll get the most out of it if you also use it to just enjoy what you're studying. And what we find is even people that have come to it for very focused, I want to develop in my career reasons, find themselves taking modules just for the joy. And if you do stuff you're interested in, that will also help with your career if it comes to it. And for a final reflection, and then I'm going to share it because we've run over time, is one of the unique things about professional studies, if you think about it, is everybody's taking these different modules. So in the core modules, what you benefit from is not just a diverse group of people, but a diverse group of people who are studying all sorts of different things. So some of my favourite moments on the degree are when someone brings into one of the core modules, say, exploring contemporary issues, something that they've learned on another module, like a law module or sociology or philosophy. So you get that kind of rich experience of people sharing that knowledge.
Thank you very much, Catherine and Rosa, and thank you to all our students and all of you who've participated so thoroughly today. I hope that's given you a really good overview of professional studies and a bit of a flavour of how it's taught and the kind of issues that you can engage with.